Betsy DeVos finalizes Title IX rewrite, restoring due process for college men accused of sexual assault. Woohoo! Predictably, feminists howl that affording due process to men is tantamount to silencing women. Tara Reade could not be reached for comment, and Joe Biden just screamed "Pony Boy" a dozen times and beat his head against the wall. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and welcome to the newly balanced Dr. Duke Show. Balance, that is, between the rights of the accused and the rights of the guilty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we kick things off with a new Title IX regulations that just were released by Betsy DeVos and the Department of Education that aim to correct how allegations of sexual assault are treated on the college campus. And this is a big deal. And, you know, I have been a critic of Betsy DeVos. I mean, she's one of the people who funded Common Core. She was on Jeb Bush's Common Core committee. She is somebody who is not working with Donald Trump to get rid of the Department of Education, which is something Donald Trump said he wanted to do. However, give her her due. This is important. We've seen dozens of stories now over the last 2-3 years where college men have been accused of sexual assault. And almost every aspect of their due process rights have been denied. They have not been allowed to confront their accuser. That they and their lawyers have not been allowed to see the evidence against them. This has been kangaroo court in your progressive, feminized, ridiculously feminized universities. Now this puts back due process. What Betsy DeVos did just simply says, men are perceived innocent until they are proven guilty. You cannot run over constitutional rights because you're a flaming radical feminist. So a big thank you to Betsy DeVos. What gets me, and you can talk about this, Katie, is how angry the feminists are, how angry the liberals are. Literally, the liberals are arguing that this is going to make women's voices silent. You're going to kill women because men have the benefit of constitutional protections.
This is what they do anytime it is something that goes against what their left-wing agenda put forth. So the fact that someone within the Trump administration, someone who has that R after their name, obviously anything that comes from them, you must reverse. But what is the funny part of this entire thing is the fact that we have Joe Biden out there making comments about what he would do if he were president, or I should say, when he's president, what he's going to do to basically reverse this. So after the Title IX new regulations came out, here's what Joe Biden had to say. Survivors deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And when they step forward, they should be heard, not silenced. It's wrong. And it will be put to a quick end in January of 2021, because as president, I'll be right where I always have been throughout my career, on the side of the survivors who deserve to have their voices heard, their claims taken seriously and investigated, and their rights upheld.
The ways in which, let me count the ways in which this
Exactly.
is hypocritical, right? So what you just said, Joe, let women be heard and investigated. That's exactly what this does.
Exactly.
This exactly allows women to make complaints. Those complaints must be taken seriously at the university. They are going to be investigated. All you're doing, Joe, your hair smells good, Joe, is that clean, articulate black guy, Joe, that you can't walk into a 7-Eleven without seeing a poo from The Simpsons. That Joe Biden with his tingly leg hair? Joe Biden of the... we haven't even mentioned Tara Reade yet.
Yeah,
I want to keep going on this before we even get to Tara Reade. Joe Biden is going to fix this for Democrats, right? While he's not fixing it for Tara Reade.
There's just too much to talk about. But just so everyone knows, what Betsy DeVos is doing, her rule is actually founded on, as it should be, the Supreme Court's 1999 decision. Yep. Whereas, you know, when we had a certain president named Barack Obama, dear colleague, and the way they were handling everything with the Title IX allegations. So I'm quite interested to see what actually happens now. I mean, we don't even have campuses anyway, so it's not like right now we're going to see the Title IX stuff taking into effect if we don't have students.
How about
anywhere.
that? Another plus of college campuses being closed. No rapes, no sexual harassments, right? None of the stuff that we usually report on is happening on college campuses. Because they're not in business. In a second, though, I'd like you to close this segment by reading what Betsy DeVos actually had to say a little bit, or at least to talk about some of what the changes look like. But I got to go back to this point again and make it very clear. What the progressives are fighting, and the feminists are fighting, and the universities are fighting, and all of liberaldom has lost their ever-loving minds over, is the fact that Betsy DeVos has simply undone what Barack Obama illegally did. And by illegally, I mean it's one of those gray areas. He didn't force a change in the law because that would have been challenged in court, right? He didn't demand Title IX be completely rewritten because that would have required an act of Congress. What Barack Obama did in 2011 is basically write a letter to all the universities saying, we would prefer if you did it this way, dear colleague. And of course, universities, being left-wing shills for Obama, did exactly what he said and started literally persecuting men, even men who were accused of the most absurd things like, I was raped 3 years ago, even though my roommate says I wasn't, even though I have no evidence, even though I have all the text, my opponent, the boy, has 8,000 text messages about me stalking him, I'm still guilty, and the boys were just deemed guilty without any due process. This will fix that now. One more way Obama has been stifled and stymied correctly by what the Trump administration is trying to do.
And according to the summary, the new rule does not demand any particular type of discipline against offenders unless the school's treatment of harassment fails to meet the Supreme Court's Title IX definition of harassment. Only in that case does the DOE have authority under the law to require a school to set up particular rules on sexual harassment or deny federal funds to a school that does not.
So which administration, Katie, pop quiz, actually follows the rule of law here, Obama or Trump?
Okay, who am I trying to appease? You?
Normal people, not feminists.
Okay, Trump.
Trump administration, again, following the laws when the Obama Department of Education and the Department of Justice refused to do so.
All right, moving on. We're going to take a look at the college campuses and specifically what it's supposedly going to look like for fall enrollments, because we know they're going to take a hit. Surveys have been taken every month now since COVID-19. And they basically have come to the conclusion that high school seniors, current college students, they're all saying, well, we don't know what the future holds. In the fall, we might not be there. The latest survey comes from College Pulse, which administered an online poll to some 1,500 undergrads at the end of April. And it found that nearly 1 in 10, like 10%, will change their plans for the fall semester because of coronavirus. They said while 3% plan on transferring to another school, another 3% say they won't enroll anywhere. And many students are also waiting to basically hear, per university, what are their plans for this?
I don't think 10% is all that bad, to tell you the truth. Of that 10%, it's either going to be higher or lower. I think it's going to be a little bit higher, but not much. And that's not that bad. If 1 in 10 kids attending to college doesn't go, that's not going to be that's not an insurmountable hit for most universities. But here's my thought. As somebody who's been in the college classroom for 25 years, actually 27 years now, but it keeps getting older, 27 years now, I can tell you that we've reached the point in this postmodern era where about 50% of college kids are there for anything but school. I mean, easily. About 50% of college kids, I think it's higher than that, but about 50% of college kids are there for the social experience. They're there to sow their wild oats. They're there for the partying, the marijuana, the dorm experience. They're there for the social activities, the clubs, the sports. They're there for anything other than the university. That's easily 50%. So it seems to me you take 50% away, and then you ask yourself, what are the universities going to do? And the sad thing is that of the 50% of really serious college kids who want to get a degree, they're the ones who are going to suffer here because the universities are going to take a further hit in enrollment, and then in desperation, they're going to lower standards, they're going to get rid of tests to get in, they're going to ignore your GPA and your high school grade placement because we need your bodies. In fact, we're going to have a story coming up about how universities are freaking out and now trying to find people on their waiting list who couldn't get in to drag them in. Pretty soon, they're going to be trolling college diplomas through the back alleys of America's worst neighborhoods and having anybody come out to find and get them.
You want one?
Hey, you want a piece of sheepskin? Right? And I don't mean condoms.
There you go. Well, you'd probably like having this one University of Minnesota student in your class. This student said, if they announce online, I'm taking the semester off and working full time. I am not paying $15,000 for a Zoom U.
And that's a great kid.
I
thought
like
you were
that
being
kid.
sarcastic.
No, I said
yeah. Come to Wisconsin.
It's
young
only
lady.
a state away. Come on
Exactly.
over.
Look, online education works really well through high school. But when you're dealing with advanced concepts in college, where so much of it is based on people with actual educational bona fides talking to each other, it doesn't work so well. And so she's exactly right. Why would you pay this kind of money? Here, how about this little shocking statement? My niece goes to Baylor, which is one of the most expensive universities anywhere, private Christian colleges. And Baylor, according to what I understand, actually charged kids after they went home, charged them an online fee.
What?
That's exactly right. Now, again, I'm going to look into this. So this is what I've heard. But my sister-in-law got a bill for $3,000.
Stop it.
$3,000 after the kids went home, and that was for $1,500 each for 2 classes in online instruction.
Actually is.
It doesn't it sound too crazy to believe?
It does.
So let's. I'll come back with an update on that. But that's what I've heard firsthand from a couple of Baylor students and their mother.
I'm just trying to think. Like, they already charged them a tech fee, and they already charged them. Did they get anything back in terms of No. Okay. Silly question.
I do think they will get that they had an apartment off campus.
Oh, okay. So
they've worked something
of
out there,
stuff.
but not in terms of the university. No.
Wow, that it actually doesn't shock me. There were some other polls that have been conducted just for funsies, because I like data. In late April, a one class polled 1,038 students from 25 colleges and universities across the U.S., and they said, "Do you plan to withdraw from your current school if they only offer a remote or e-learning option for fall?" And almost 35% of the students said, yep, they're going to withdraw if that's what happens. Then we have high school seniors who are saying basically kind of the same sentiment. We've reported on this before. The national survey by Art and Science Group of nearly 500 high school seniors taken in mid-March found that 1 in 6 seniors are saying, we're not going to go to a 4-year college if this is what it is.
And worse than that, if you're getting basically an online education, who's going to pay the tuition at places like Harvard? Why not go to the University of Phoenix, for God's sake? If what you're doing is an all online curriculum, don't pay $40,000 to the University of Missouri. Go to one of these you see the commercials for these universities, right? Go to one of them. Pay 1/5 of the tuition and get the same crappy online education.
On to our next story in the panic at the universities. It's not the panic at the disco, but it is panic at universities. And we know the universities do not want to admit defeat. They will never do that. So they're going to twist it to sound all positive. And right now it's, get yourself off the wait list. Come on to our university. But Deborah Felix, a former admissions director at Columbia University, and she now runs her own student advising service, says people are coming off wait lists all over the place right now. It tells me that the yeses, so the people who say yes, that they're going to be coming back, the yeses are coming back very slowly, or people are getting back to them quickly with no's. So it's either students are saying, maybe I'll come back, and the other ones are like, nope, not coming back. So they're going to the wait list.
How about this? How about, pretending you're doing these kids a favor by asking them after you rejected them? Why don't you throw half tuition at them? Why don't you say, if you come back, we'll cover your room and board, right? Or we'll provide your meal plan. Again, the universities, which for a long time, particularly the big ones, have been hoarding these endowments, not spending them. And they still want to do this, right? I mean, if you're going to a place like Harvard or Yale, or even University of Texas or University of Wisconsin, sitting on billions of dollars of endowment, there's no reason these universities can't weather this storm if they tap into that fund. I get it, we have to have the endowment. No, you don't. And what you can also do is you could use a little carrot instead of a little stick, right? Ooh. Hey, come back. You were on the waiting list. We turned you down, but we're going to take you now. And if you come to the University of Wisconsin, we're going to give you a free year worth of your meal plan, right? You do what everybody else has to do. Especially in times of trouble, make your business viable. The universities have never been held to the standard. And on one level, it is remarkably refreshing that they have to be.
Well, they already are giving that little carrot because they're giving students extra time to decide whether or not.
What choice do they have?
Exactly.
It'll be the first week of November.
Rick, are
There'll already
coming?
be 2 months of school, and some kid says, I'd like to come. Oh, let's open everything and make everybody go back to September. right? So this kid who's paying us tuition is going to get his education.
So here's an example that they wrote about of a student named Johnny Kenovan. He's a senior at Seneca High School in Tabernacle, New Jersey, and he was recruited to play basketball at York College in Pennsylvania. But he says his plans are going to change if the campus is still closed. He says, it doesn't make sense to pay 20 grand to sit at my computer at home and take online courses. You can get the same education from a community college. Another example of a student you would like to have in your class.
You could, not even a community college, you could get the same education from an online community college. So it does beg, and here I am talking myself out of a job.
Yes, you are.
Literally talking myself, because my university has decided that they are going to furlough us all, make us work the exact same hours in the fall, just pay us less, right? They're also, the University of Wisconsin has decided they're going to completely streamline all 13 UW system schools and make them each one thing, right? They'll have other things as well, but you know, the university is going to be tailored. One might be an engineering school, one might be, right, a nursing and business school. So we've got to see, because if my university goes all STEM, guess who may be actually fired from his university job?
They finally gotcha.
That's one way they got.
That would be one way they.
Hey, that's one way you can get rid of the one or two conservative people you have on campuses all across the country. Now, there's a silver lining for the progressive educrats. You can get rid of the few people who disagree with the way you do things.
And just like that, though, in true fashion, they would ignore all the other people who also got fired, even though that follows their thing. Well, the thing that colleges seem to really be focused on, though, in terms of loss is foreign students, because, you know, if you get those in-state kids, you're not getting as much money from them. But the foreign students, you know, they're living on campus, you know, they're going to do the meal plan, they're going to give you all the tuition dollars, so they're really concerned about that.
Hey, and if those foreign kids don't come, who's going to steal all of our technology and all of our infrastructure? Who's going to do that? I mean, we already got rid of a lot of Chinese professors, right? Who were American professors who were collaborating with the Chinese. If we don't get our dose of Chinese transfer of international students, oh my God.
What are we going to do?
What are we going to do? Heaven forbid.
And it's that time of the day for some real education. Today, we're actually taking a look at The Brothers Karamazov, which is the final novel by Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky. Now, he spent nearly 2 years writing The Brothers Karamazov, and he also died less than 4 months after its publication in 1881. The book is a philosophical novel set in 19th century Russia that profoundly debates the ideas about God, free will, morality, and since its publication, it's been acclaimed as one of the supreme achievements in world literature.
It is. It really is. I think it's the greatest novel that was ever written. And when we talk about the idea that the Brothers Karamazov goes into issues of God, faith, doubt, belief, I've never read anything that, with the possible exception of King Lear, that comes close to this in terms of that. And so it's a murder novel. So the great thing about it is it's a detective novel. Somebody is going to die. You almost know who it is from the beginning of the book, but you don't know until the last pages, and there are 750 of them. You don't know until the very last pages who the murderer is. In fact, the murderer is committed along philosophical lines. So if you understand what each character represents, right? The three brothers Karamazov, right? You've got the eldest, Ivan, which represents reason and logic. And then you've got the middle brother, Dmitri, who is emotion. And you've got the youngest brother, Alexei, who represents faith. And every character in the book, beyond being interesting characters in themselves, they all represent ideas. It is a fantastic read. The murder story alone will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's a long book. It's a long Russian book. But existentialism, in this book, Dostoevsky gives us Christian existentialism. The idea that if you actually have the possibility of God, you can have existential doubt, right? Real existentialism is not the stuff that Sartre did. All of this, we don't believe in God, therefore, how horrifying living is. The existential struggle of people like Sartre, godless existentialism, is kind of like, well, how do we make this meaningless world mean something? But if you actually have a debate between God and no God. What are the consequences if God exists? And what are the consequences if there is no God? That, my friends, is real existential angst because you're walking that line. No book in Western history, world history, does it better than that book. It's a philosophical book, so you got to have some patience with it. But it's amazing. Give me one. So I'm taking 750 pages of Russian absolute genius and condensing it down to one quote, and here's our quote. Because Dostoevsky recognized that as Russia and the Western world was flirting with Marxism, as he saw it, he actually saw communism coming, Dostoevsky. And he recognized that the face of modern atheism was socialism. Here's a great quote from the book. For socialism, Dostoevsky writes, is not merely the labor question. It is before all things the atheistic question, the question of the form taken by atheism today, the question of the Tower of Babel built without God, not to mount to heaven from earth, but to set up heaven on earth. And there's your existential imagery, right? On the one hand, you've got the Tower of Babel. When human beings came together, spoke one language, they immediately decided to storm the tower and take heaven. Versus the idea that earth is not heaven. Earth is a place we endure. We were not made for heaven. We were not made for earth. We were made for heaven. We were not meant to die. Original sin brought sin and death. So you have two options. One, you can pretend that earth is heaven, as the progressives do. Let's make this place heaven because there is no heaven. Or you can recognize what Dostoevsky recognized. As human beings with souls, we were not made for this earth. We are strangers here. The sooner we get away from this and back to the God who made us, the better. So which is it going to be? The atheists who say there is no God and therefore this place has to be heaven. So we're going to blow your brains out if you don't agree with us, right? That's how much is at stake. We're going to use socialism to turn you into heaven on earth. If you don't like it, we're going to throw you in concentration camps. Or the idea that you live, you love, and you suffer in this world so that you can be free and sinless in the next. Way to go, Fyodor Dostoevsky.
And that's your Monday. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have a question for our Friday Q&A, visit freedomproject.com/askduke or send us a message on social media. Now, let's wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. This one's a more reflective note on life. When you think about it for a brief moment, at the time of your birth, you are the youngest person in the whole entire world.
Disagree. Because the moment you're born, somebody else has been conceived. And as you and I both know, life begins at conception.
Just a split hair second. You are just always rapping.
As bright and happy and smart as Katie is, sometimes she's got to be put in her place.
A brief moment. You just brief moment.
Who's the dog? Who's the big dog? Mm-hmm. Woof, woof, woof. And that's our show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay in tune, my friends.